Okay, so this is my inaugural video. I decided that I'd like to start making videos because I miss teaching. I was a teacher, a U.S. history teacher for 10 years, and I decided I needed a break, and then I found out that I missed it. But there were certain things about teaching that I did not miss. So I didn't want to go back into a classroom, but I knew I wanted to still lecture about history, the stuff that I love. So this was a way for me to do it. So I'm giving it a try, and I'm sure that the sound won't be right, or the lighting won't be right, and my editing won't be right. So I just decided to go and do it because I was just waiting around thinking, oh, I got to have this right and that right, and it'll never be right. So I just wanted to do it and get it out of the way. So get started with it. Um, my background is I have an MA in education, and like I said, I taught for 10 years, and I also have a master's degree in U.S. history. Um, I have wanted to do a PhD for a long time, but I live in the real world with a family and finances and bills and all that stuff. So, just me making excuses. But I would like to work on a PhD one day. Um, the point of my videos, the point of this channel will be to analyze primary sources from the founding generation. That's my area of expertise. So I always had a predilection for the founding generation, and I call it the generation because fathers is too limited. Um, but so my area of expertise is the Revolutionary era and the Constitutional era. So the point of my channel would be to analyze primary sources and relate them to today. Not hopefully not in a too overtly political way, but politics plays a part in everything, and so does bias. And so part of my bias is that I love George Washington. Washington is my favorite president. I think he's probably my favorite historical figure. Period. Um, and a disclaimer about Washington: I know that he was a slave owner. We all know that. Um, that you can't excuse that. There's no way to get around that. However, I would argue, and I have argued pretty much my entire adult life, that he was one of the only founders who wanted to do something to get rid of slavery. He freed his slaves in his will, as many people know. Um, if you read anything by Washington from starting from the Revolutionary War until his death, his attitude towards slavery evolved. He knew that it was terrible. He knew that it was. It started with he knew it wasn't a very financially viable institution for himself personally. But when the war started, he realized that the idea of slavery and fighting for freedom were incompatible. And so, watching him evolve on the idea of slavery, something that was embedded in white culture in those centuries is very interesting. And by the time he passes away, he made a secret will to free his slaves in his will. Um, that's we could talk about that for four more videos, really. But despite Washington being a slave owner, I think that he is the greatest American that has ever lived, and I think that like many of the books behind me, many of those historians will say that Washington was the indispensable man. I really believe that we would not have this country, without George Washington's sacrifice. So that could be another video. Um, so hopefully my videos will get better. I feel like I'm rambling already. So the topic of today's video is a letter that Washington wrote to the Toros Synagogue. Um, If you go to Philadelphia, you'll see in the square, Freedom Square, I think it's called Freedom Square, there's this huge banner on the side of a building, and it says, "To bigotry, the United States government will give no sanction." It's been one of my favorite things that Washington wrote. And so once he became president, there were lots of congratulatory letters sent to him from many congregations, many different denominations, religions. And one of them was from the Toros Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island. And on August 18th, 1790, sorry, we're going to have to edit that out. On August 17th, 1790, Moses Sexia's letter to George Washington arrived, and he was congratulating Washington for becoming the president, the first president, and wishing him well. And in response, Washington writes a letter that still to this day is celebrated yearly by the synagogue as being a very impactful statement on including Jewish Americans in American culture. So I'm going to read this. We're going to analyze some of the pieces. And at the end, I will give you the sources for what it is that I read and where you can find further readings. Okay. So Washington's response to the Touro Synagogue, Newport, Rhode Island, August 18th, 1790. Gentlemen, while I receive with much satisfaction your address, replete with expressions of affection and esteem, I rejoice in the opportunity of assuring you that I shall always retain a grateful remembrance of the cordial welcome I experienced in my visit to Newport from all classes of citizens. The reflection on the days of difficulty and danger which are past is rendered the more sweet from a consciousness that they are succeeded by days of uncommon prosperity and security. If we have wisdom to make the best use of the advantages with which we are now favored, we cannot fail, under the just administration of a good government, to become a great and happy people. The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possesses alike liberty of consciousness, of conscience, and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if by indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of inherent natural rights. For happily the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens, in giving it on all occasions their effectual support. It would be inconsistent with the frankness of my character not to avow that I am pleased with your favorable opinion of my administration and fervent wishes for my felicity. May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercies scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make us all in our several vocations useful here, and in his own due time and way everlastingly happy. So the letter itself, Washington's trying to say that Jewish people are welcome here in the United States. And there's a little bit of context. Jewish people were not even allowed to hold offices in many of the states at the time. They couldn't vote, so they were seen as second-class citizens. Um, and at the time that Washington wrote this, Jewish people had no real home anywhere. Anti-Semitism was the norm. I mean, just as common as slavery in most places. So for Jewish people to come here and have the new president of the United States tell them that not only are they welcome, but everyone is welcome. That's a huge thing. That's impactful, and it carries on that impact to today. Um, in the letter, um, there's a lot of professors who have dissected this letter, but in the letter there are key takeaways. Um, 7 key phrases that Washington uses throughout the letter, and he actually wrote these 7 same phrases in at least 18 other letters to various religious sects and denominations. So he knew what he was saying, and he knew that it was going to be picked apart and it was going to be impactful and purposeful. So he continued to use the same 7 phrases. And so we're going to go over those 7 phrases right now. So the first of the 7 phrases is all classes of citizens. So all classes of citizens. He's saying that Jewish people are included in all classes of citizens. And so anybody, whoever you are, if you're a good person and you want to be an American, you can be an American. You are welcome here. I think that is a sentiment that we still should be holding dear today. And in today's political climate, that seems to be up for debate, but it should not be, especially if we still venerate somebody like George Washington. Second key phrase, a great and happy people. Washington is saying that a happy people means that they're a prosperous people. Just like in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, happiness did not mean, giddy and happy and going to the park and having a fun day. Happiness meant you could own things and protect your things, and you could prosper. Your family would be safe. So it's about money. And then originally, um, John John Locke wrote Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Property. It was Franklin who turned it into Pursuit of Happiness for Jefferson. So Washington's saying that if you're a good person, if you're a good citizen, you can be a good American to help make us all a great and happy people. Happy meaning prosperous. The third phrase he uses over and over again is toleration and inherent rights. So today, toleration is probably not the politically correct word to use. We don't want to just tolerate people, but back then we're talking about baby steps. So we're talking about the first president of the United States, the first person to be thinking of, not first person, but the first leader to be thinking of how do we be inclusive? What is the United States supposed to be? If it's not inclusive, what did we fight this war for? And Washington's saying, we're going to tolerate everyone. And when he says tolerate, we can't think of it as just like, oh, I'm putting up with you. It's tolerate as in, you are welcome. Everybody who can come here and benefit and contribute to our society will be tolerated, no matter who you are, Jewish, Muslim, which they called Mohammedan, but everyone. And every one of those people had inherent rights, because if you were human, you had inherent rights. You were born with certain rights, which could be another video, of course. Inherent right, you have the inherent right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we are a nation of laws. That was the entire point. Not a nation of religions, but a nation of laws. The fourth key phrase he uses is to bigotry, no sanction. So, like I had mentioned in my disclaimer about Washington, he knew, and by saying no bigotry, no sanction to bigotry, he knew that slavery was wrong. And he's trying to put it out there without being. He has a role to play as the leader of all the nation, both the slave-owning states and the non-slave-owning states. And so he can't overtly take sides as the president. But what he's trying to do is send a message that there should not be bigotry, there should not be slavery. So the analysis of this is, in my opinion, has always been he's trying to set an example that all men are created equal, and he really believes that, and he's trying to persuade other people through his words and actions that he believes that, and that we should all believe that. So the government, in his view, will not give bigotry any sanction. Number 5, as good citizens. So he's saying, as good citizens, people need, if you want to come here, that's fine, but you have to be prepared to be a good citizen. And what does that mean? Well, a good citizen to the founding generation was somebody who participated. One of my favorite stories by Bettany Hughes in a video I used to show my students was that the word idiotai in Greek means idiot, and it referred to people who did not participate in the political process. So good citizens, in Washington's view and most of the founders' view, was somebody who participated, not just financially. I mean, of course, owning a business and employing people and contributing to the well-being of the economic situation in any colony or state was great. But also, good citizen is helping your neighbors, making sure you contribute to the welfare of your neighbors. And so, good citizen meant that you participated in politics, the economy, in the community. Number 6, his own vine and fig tree. And so there's a progression in these phrases. And of course, so he's saying, if you can come here and you contribute and you're a good person and you live a good life, you too can have your own vine and fig tree to live happily underneath, which is, a phrase that we've seen often in religion, your own vine and fig tree. And so it's like the pinnacle of your prosperity. You've worked hard, you've created something for yourself and your family, and you have the opportunity now, because the government protects that, and your right to own it protects us, and you have the right to sit under your fig tree and enjoy your prosperity. And in doing so, everybody else can also enjoy the same prosperity and protection from each other and from the United States government. And then finally, the seventh phrase is everlastingly happy. Washington believes, and he's trying to say, that if we can pull off these first six phrases, if we can do all these things, then the seventh, everlasting happiness, that's a given. So we can create a nation where we help each other, where we all prosper, where we become, because of that communal prosperity, a great nation. Not great as in the way we would see a nation today. We would, he was not thinking superpower. He was thinking great nation as in welcoming freedom, welcoming the rule of law, welcoming all people, and so they can live a better life. So everything, of course, is in context of the generation. But these seven phrases, and just to go over them real quick again, these seven phrases are things that are still relevant today. And if we watch the news at any moment, I'm sure that these things will pop up in somebody's head. All classes of citizens are welcome. A great and happy people we can become, toleration and inherent rights, and to bigotry no sanction. Live as good citizens. You have the right to live under your own vine and fig tree, which will create everlasting happiness. So, Washington's trying to make a public statement as the leader of this new nation that if we participate, if we're good to each other, if we work hard, we can all achieve this everlasting happiness, and it makes the country everlastingly happy. It creates a strong country. And he, as the government leader, is going to help. He's going to ensure that that's what the government's job is, to make us all prosperous and happy. So that is it for my first video. I am going to post the letter that Moses Saxius writes to Washington, and then Washington's response, and then I'll post some other follow-up readings. So I apologize for any goofiness or speakings. See, did it again. But I will post this video as soon as I edit it. Thanks for watching.